In the heart of Washington, D.C., a calm black woman walked through the imposing front doors of the federal courthouse, ready to begin her workday. The air was crisp, and the city was just waking up, the distant sounds of traffic mingling with the soft rustle of leaves. Judge Imani Rodas, a figure of quiet strength, adjusted her navy coat as she approached the security checkpoint, but today was different. Deputy Colton Briggs, a man whose presence loomed large, eyed her with suspicion. "Ma'am," he barked, "I need you to step out of line." Imani paused, her heart racing, but her expression remained calm. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked, her voice steady. "No ID visible," he sneered, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. Imani reached into her coat, retrieving her federal judiciary badge. But Briggs snatched it from her grasp, slipping it into his pocket without a second glance. "You'll follow my procedure," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. Imani felt the tension in the air as he grabbed her arm, leading her down a dimly lit hallway. The door to a small, windowless room clicked shut behind them, sealing her fate. "You think flashing a little badge means something?" he taunted, flicking on a pair of electric clippers. "You could be hiding something in that curly mop." Imani's heart raced, but she remained composed. "I do not consent to this. You have no cause to detain me." The clippers buzzed ominously, and as they touched her scalp, she felt pieces of her identity fall away. Each stroke stripped her of dignity, but she refused to scream or struggle. Instead, she clenched her fists, channeling her fury into a quiet storm brewing within. When the door finally opened, Imani walked out, her head shaved but her spirit unbroken. She would not let this humiliation define her. As she entered the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted. The room fell silent, eyes wide with disbelief. The woman they had seen dragged away was not a victim, she was the judge. "Is the docket ready?" she asked, her voice steady. The clerk stammered, "Yes, Your Honor." Imani took her seat, the weight of the room pressing down on her. She would not let fear dictate her actions. As the hearing began, witnesses spoke of the abuses they had suffered at the hands of the police. Imani listened intently, her pen moving swiftly across the page. But her gaze often flicked to Briggs, who stood rigidly at the back, his confidence waning with each testimony. After a brief recess, Imani called for Deputy Briggs to step forward. "State your full name for the record," she commanded. "Colton Briggs," he replied, his voice trembling. "How long have you served as a court security officer?" 18 years, he admitted, his eyes darting nervously. Imani leaned forward, her voice sharp. "And in those 18 years, how many women have you physically handled without cause?" I don't know," he stammered. "I didn't realize." "Didn't realize what?" she interrupted. "That you were a judge? 12 complaints have been filed against you, all dismissed. But not anymore." The courtroom held its breath as Imani declared, "You are suspended effective immediately. Formal charges will be submitted to the Department of Justice." The weight of her words hung in the air, a reckoning long overdue. As Briggs was escorted out, Imani felt a shift in the room. This was not just about her, it was about justice for all. The silence that followed was heavy with anticipation, a collective breath held in unison. Days turned into weeks, and the courtroom buzzed with renewed energy. Imani proposed the Rodas Reform, a policy aimed at eradicating bias and ensuring accountability within the courthouse. "This is not about revenge," she declared, "but about responsibility." The atmosphere shifted again as people began to rise, not for applause, but in solidarity. They stood together, united against the silence that had protected the wrongdoers for too long. Imani felt the weight of their support, a tide of change washing over the courtroom. As the trial progressed, the media descended upon the courthouse, capturing every moment. Imani's resolve only strengthened. She was no longer just a judge, she was a beacon of hope for those who had been silenced. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. Colton Briggs stood before her, stripped of his badge and authority. "This court sentences you to the maximum penalties under federal law," Imani stated, her voice unwavering. "You will serve your time not as an officer, but as a man accountable for his actions." As he was led away, the courtroom remained silent, not in celebration, but in acknowledgement of the truth that had finally emerged. Imani looked around, her heart swelling with pride. This was just the beginning. The following morning, the courthouse felt different. People greeted her with respect, their eyes reflecting the change that had taken root. Imani stepped into the courtroom, her presence commanding. "This courtroom will no longer be a fortress," she declared. "It will be a mirror." With each passing day, the reforms took shape, and the courthouse transformed into a space of accountability and justice. Imani stood at the helm, guiding the way forward, her heart full of purpose. As she left the courthouse one evening, a woman approached her, tears in her eyes. "I never thought I'd see someone like you do what you just did," she said, her voice trembling. Imani took her hand, a silent promise passing between them. That night, as Imani stood on her porch, she felt the weight of the world lift. The storm had passed, but the fight for justice was far from over. She was ready for whatever came next, knowing that she would not stand alone. That in the heart of Washington, D.C., a new dawn was breaking, and Judge Imani Rodas was leading the charge, her voice no longer just a whisper but a powerful call for justice. The aftermath. As the weeks turned into months, the impact of Imani's reforms rippled through the community. The courthouse became a symbol of hope and change, a place where voices that had long been silenced were finally heard. Imani held town hall meetings, inviting citizens to share their experiences and concerns. The community rallied around her, and together they forged a path toward a more equitable justice system. Imani's reputation grew, and she was invited to speak at national conferences, sharing her story and advocating for systemic change. She became a sought-after voice in discussions about civil rights, police accountability, and the importance of representation in the judiciary. Her journey inspired countless others to stand up against injustice, igniting a movement that spread far beyond the walls of the courthouse. Meanwhile, Deputy Colton Briggs faced the consequences of his actions. His trial was highly publicized, and the evidence against him was overwhelming. As he sat in the courtroom, stripped of his authority and dignity, Imani watched with a sense of resolve. This was not just about punishment, it was about accountability and the restoration of trust in the justice system. As the verdict was read, the courtroom erupted in applause. Briggs was sentenced to several years in prison, a clear message that abuse of power would not be tolerated. Imani felt a sense of closure, knowing that justice had been served, but she also understood that the work was far from over. With the momentum of her reforms, Imani pushed for legislation that would ensure ongoing oversight of law enforcement practices. She collaborated with advocacy groups, lawmakers, and community leaders to create a comprehensive plan that addressed the root causes of systemic injustice. Her vision was clear: a justice system that served all citizens equally, regardless of race or background. As the years passed, Imani continued to lead with compassion and strength. She mentored young lawyers and judges, encouraging them to uphold the values of justice and integrity. Her legacy became one of empowerment, inspiring a new generation to fight for what was right. In the end, Judge Imani Rodas not only transformed her courtroom but also ignited a movement that reshaped the landscape of justice in America. Her story became a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of standing up against injustice, and the belief that change is possible when individuals come together to demand it. And so, in the heart of Washington, D.C., a new chapter in the pursuit of justice began, one that would echo through the halls of history for generations to come.